Coming up next on Insights on PBS Hawaii, what needs to be done to reduce drug abuse in Hawaii? Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff of Hawaii News Now. In the early 2000s, state and county officials raised the alarm about the dangers of crystal methamphetamine, declaring a high-profile war on ice. Today, the impacts of meth addiction don't make news nearly as often, but according to a U.S. Justice Department report, crystal methamphetamine costs the state up to $500 million a year for incarceration, treatment, social services, and lost work time. Meanwhile, Hawaii officials say they are also worried about prescription painkillers like OxyContin and street drugs like heroin, which are gaining popularity, particularly on the mainland. Tonight on Insights, what needs to be done to reduce drug abuse in Hawaii? We want to hear from you during tonight's show. Call 973-1000 if you live on Oahu or 800-238-4847 if you're calling from a neighbor island. You can also watch Insights streamed live at pbshawaii.org. Just click on the title of tonight's show or find us on Twitter at PBS Hawaii. Now to our panel. Captain Jason Kawabata is a 24-year Honolulu Police Department veteran. He's the executive officer for HPD's Narcotics Vice Division, which handles drug-related crimes. Dr. Angela Goff is a psychiatrist specializing in the treatment of addictions. She is currently furthering her training through a University of Hawaii Addiction Psychiatry Fellowship. Alan Johnson is the chief executive officer for Hina Mauka, a residential drug treatment facility in Kaneohe. Since 2005, he's also served as the chairman of the Hawaii Substance Abuse Coalition, a hui of 30 treatment agencies. And Georgiana DaCosta is the executive director of the Hawaii Meth Project, a large-scale prevention program that aims at reducing crystal methamphetamine use through public service messaging, public policy, and community outreach. Ms. DaCosta is a former meth addict herself, but turned her life around 16 years ago. And let me start with you, Georgiana. Your story. Tell me, what kind of ravages have you seen, in your experience with this particular drug?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on this program to share the work of the Hawaii Meth Project and the devastation of crystal methamphetamine. Actually, Daryl, I have seen crystal meth to be quite devastating. I started experimenting with different drugs when I was 12 years old. When I was 17, I had my first hit of meth. By the time I was 19, I had a full-blown meth and heroin addiction, smoking both drugs. I was homeless. I was on the streets, various situations for about 5 or 6 years until I finally got my life together. And it was heroin is extremely addictive. Opiates are extremely difficult to get through, but the devastation and destruction of methamphetamine was by far the worst because it destroys people, mind, body, and soul.
You talked earlier about people that you've known personally who've died from this or killed themselves because of it.
I have seen people, there have been many people very close to me who have struggled with addiction, meth addiction, as well as heroin addiction, and have lost their lives. People in my children's father lost his life to heroin and meth. And their aunt, her body shut down at a very young age because of meth, the devastation that meth did to her body. And just recently, my niece, who committed suicide after years of being in recovery and trying to be a substance abuse counselor for youth. So it's been a really difficult road, and so this is why I do the work I do, because I don't want to see other people struggle down this path, because not everybody returns in one piece or at all.
Okay, we'll talk some more about that as we move along. And Alan Johnson from Hina Mauka, of all of our panelists, you've been at this the longest. I don't think I mean to name you by age, but what have you seen? Have we won this war on ice? Was the war on ice a success?
No, I don't believe war is even the appropriate term anymore. I think we're all waking up to it's a medical condition, and there's things we can do about this that would be differently than what we're addressing it. And I want to start off by saying that the patient today who has a drug addiction is not the patient that I started 20 years ago. It's
Really?
completely different. I mean, before you looked at and you saw you had an alcoholic, they had some social skills. We used to say they know how to make their bed. And today that's not the issue at all with second or third generational users. Most of the people who come to us, they come to us not for their addiction, they come to us for their medical condition and their mental health issue. They have diabetes, they have pain, they have pulmonary disorders, they have heart disease, and they're not getting treatment because they also have these other co-occurring issues. They got depression, they got PTSD, they have trauma underlying them, and then they're self-medicating with substance abuse. Now maybe they started with substance abuse and found these and got these other things, or maybe they started with that and then went to substance abuse. So now you have these patients coming in and say, please help me. I'm a complex patient with multiple needs. Today we have the technology to address all that, but we haven't evolved our systems on how to deal with that kind of a complex, very multiple chronic illness patient. We're still using single chronic illness models to try to treat this and say, I'll just do this one part. But what really happens is if you're really sick, we're just not treating you at all.
We'll talk a little bit more about the treatment options later in the show. Dr. Goff, you're working at Queens, you're in the psych ward there. How often do the patients you see come in with meth specifically as their addiction?
Very often. I would say over half the time meth is involved. Often we see patients with multiple substances that they're using, but meth is incredibly common. And Mr. Johnson is right that there's so many other problems that come with that. There's not an organ system that isn't affected in some way by methamphetamine. And then there's the social aspect, the psychological, the spiritual. So it really is a complex problem that does have to be addressed from multiple venues.
You know, Captain Kawabata, what's your perception and the perception of your men in the Vice unit as to the level of meth problem in this community?
Well, I can say that no neighborhood on this island is immune from having some kind of drug dealing going on. We see it all over the place, all socio-economic or ethnic backgrounds. Affects everybody. And you may not see it as much in the news anymore, but it still is a problem.
You know, that's exactly one of the questions that we got. You know, John from Ainahaina, if our drug problem is so bad, why don't we hear about it anymore in the media? I'm the only one from the media to answer the question, but Captain, you know, is the media lost interest, do you think? You don't, drug busts, nobody covers anymore? Are there drug busts going on that we just don't see, or is it a different law enforcement regime, or what do you think?
Well, our information for the arrests are made public, available to the public every day. So it's there. I think it's just a matter of what the media wants to report.
Let me ask Georgiana, this is part of your job with the Meth Project, is to try and increase public awareness. Has the media just sort of decided this is not a story anymore, in your impression?
You know, in my opinion, I think that we've all become a little jaded to it, a little desensitized to the issue, that it's not top news anymore, it's subtext in the story. Some violent crime or other, criminal activities happening, and then somewhere buried in the story is, yeah, the person may have been involved in meth or may have been high on meth. And it's not, it's no longer the headline.
And does that make any sense to you? Are we just ignoring a tremendous social problem?
I think it's very indicative of what Alan was talking about. It's just become generation after generation of, it's a part of our society, and we really have to look at how we're treating this issue, and really start talking about it differently. And that's what Hawai'i Meth Project really does. Our whole focus is talking about it. We talk about it with the youth in schools every single day, because if you don't have that conversation, how are you going to get that education and that word out? The silence is killing us. Being silent, it doesn't work.
I think that's very true. But I do believe that we're on the cusp of the media becoming involved again, because what's happened is, because we do have the science, to know what to do to be more effective. We're not applying that science, in our systems technology.
Let me ask, though,
But there's a lot of talk about changing that.
Yeah, let me just ask, though, based on what Georgiana says, and what you mentioned earlier about multi-generational drug use, tell me what that means. I mean, I know you're talking about grandparents, parents, and children all addicted. How does that happen?
I think what we're seeing is that we have large groups of people who are used to not seeking out medical care anymore, having difficulties of accessing services, especially if you'd become on Medicaid. And so you can't get into services, and so you go on these long wait lists. They get frustrated, and then they use the emergency room for when they get really sick, and then they stabilize themselves. And so, especially here in America, different than other countries, we've really gotten into a system of that. And so large groups of people are waiting till they're really sick, go to the emergency room. And that's a problem, because if you get too sick, then you can't get help, because you go to the emergency room and they say, well, you got this substance abuse problem. I can't help you with your pulmonary disorder and your depression. I stabilize you. They do a really good job, but they're not doing preventive care. And so then they send them to Hinamoka, and we go, oh, we'd love to help you with your substance abuse problem, but you've got, medical issues. You've got pulmonary disorders. We can't treat you. So, because we don't have structure and funding for that. We don't have, appropriate staff to take care of it. I mean, we could, but we don't have the system for it. So then what happens, that person doesn't get treated.
Dr. Goff, okay, so he's talking about what you do every day, right? So what do you do when someone presents with all those multiplicities of problems in your practice?
Well, it's very difficult because, as you said, it's not enough just to treat one side of it. For example, if you have someone who is homeless, how can you expect somebody to fight this chronic disease if they don't even have their basic needs met? How can you expect somebody to take their insulin every day if they have this drug habit? So it really has to come from all sides, and one doctor can't do it alone, one agency can't do it alone. We have to kind of come together as a system to have this wraparound service to meet the needs of these people.
You're relatively new in the medical profession. How does this meet your highest ideals of the medical system?
I'm learning a lot about the medical system, and it can be very frustrating. But there is treatment. People do get better, and that, I think, is what drew me to the field, because when people get better, it's like a transformation. It's like they're reborn, as I know you can attest to. Mm-hmm. And so that, I think, is what drives all of us to do what we do.
Captain Kalbata, for you and your men, is it frustrating to see the same people being arrested over and over again with their addictive behavior, or they're behaving perhaps out of a mental illness and they're on the street? Is that frustrating to you guys?
Well, I wouldn't say we're frustrated. And with us being the Narcotics Vice Division, we really actually focus more on the dealers rather than the users. Most of the users get arrested usually in conjunction with some other crime, like maybe they're arrested for shoplifting and they're found with drugs on them. We don't really see that, but tips we get from the public or complaints about drug dealing in the neighborhood, we do the best we can to put them away, if they actually are dealing drugs, and we don't necessarily see the same guys over and over.
I see, because you're not targeting them in your particular division. You're after the suppliers of the drugs.
Yes.
And those are not easy cases to make.
Correct.
Daviana, this generational. Can you describe it? Describe a family. I'm sure you've known some. How does that work? That one generation after another. What is the root cause of that? I mean, is it because they have the same DNA, or is it because they live in the same place, or?
It could be a number of things. But so, for instance, I just recently fielded a call, and actually it was just right after I received the news of my niece's death, and so I really shouldn't have been answering a phone call for work, but for some reason I did. And on the other line was a grandmother who was from a neighbor island, and she was at her wit's end, and she said she was physically ill, dealing with 4 generations in her family of meth addicts, one of whom is in the womb, because there's a user who is pregnant, and she does not know what to do because it's been happening for 20 years. in her family, and she's moved and she's tried to help them. She's done all these things, and she cannot seem to get them help. She can't seem to get them to stay clean, and there's violence, and there's been death and tragedy around it. And there's a few different things. There's some science to it with the DNA connections, and there's some behavior, the learned behavior to this, especially when it's within the same home. But I think that there's so many people out there that are suffering from this and living in this kind of situation, and we hear parents and grandparents that are struggling with this situation, and they're at their wits' end. And even though we don't service adults, we are compassionate, and we are there to provide them with some kind of advocacy outlet. And we say, you can be a part of the solution and join us to advocate for prevention and get the word out and have those conversations and share your story. Because at least if you start doing that, maybe that can save someone else's life, and maybe prevent someone else from going down that path, or help someone to stop.
Alan Johnson from Hinamauka, that prevention method, the idea of preventing people from starting, how realistic is that to work when they're in this environment where grandpa, mom and dad were users, they have easy access? I mean, does prevention messaging on television, or does that work? I had one question asked, what happened to those great meth commercials, anti-meth commercials that we used to see? Did that effort work? Does it work?
Well, I think the meth action messages work for certain types of people, and not so effective if you've already started down the road of addiction or having a big problem. But if you're certainly at the cusp of trying something, those messages can make a difference. I think what we're looking at is from some systemic changes we're looking at here in Hawaii could be a part of the answer, and that is that we're talking about training primary care doctors about addiction. Here at Hinamauka, we see well over 1,000 people come to Hinamauka, and they say, you know what, I'm having troubles. I'd like to slow down. Could you help me? And we go, no, we can't help you because you're not sick enough. Because you can only get funding if you're really sick. So we're kind of like saying to them, because all you need to do is slow down, not stop, go back out there. And they go, where do I go? And we go, nowhere. There's nowhere for you to go.
Well,
so we say, we go back out there, get sicker, and then when you're really sick, come back. But if you get too sick, then we're not going to treat you either. So you have to be right in the middle.
So what the system's discouraging is early intervention.
So there's no early intervention. And people are coming to their doctors, but we're thinking that across the nation this is happening, and we're looking at that through the governor's task force here, which I'm a member. We're looking at teaching doctors to screen for depression and alcohol, and then learn some motivational interviewing techniques. For doctors saying, hey, look, I think you should slow down, that's not that effective. But if we could teach them motivational interviewing, a few questions could make a huge, posed just right, could make a huge difference. So, but we're looking on for the next 2-3 years of training primary care doctors to be able to do that they learn about addiction, and then they learn what to do about it.
Dr. Goff, go ahead on that point. I'm curious as to what you actually do also treat private pay patients, right?
Yes.
So people are covered by insurance.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Does that make it possible for them to actually get early intervention and help early, as opposed to a government program that might have a threshold for whether you can get in or not?
Yeah, so I think that's an important consideration. We know that the vast majority of people who need treatment will never get it. And a big reason for that is because they're unable to access care. Either they don't have insurance, or the insurance that they have doesn't cover the type of service that they need, doesn't cover enough of the type of service that they need. And so I think educating primary care doctors is a really huge part of it, because most people will never see an addiction specialist, but a lot of people do see a primary care doctor, an ER physician, and they really are the front lines of treating this disease. And I know that the family medicine residency program here in Hawaii, just within the last year, is taking steps to expand the education of their residents on treating addictions.
Let me just throw this out to all of you, and it's something I think Captain Kawabata mentioned, that it's across all social economic groups from your experience, right? But, is there an economic factor that you can see? Is there a tendency in poorer neighborhoods for there to be more problems?
Really, there's very little difference. I mean, you'd be surprised where we see some of these homes where drug dealing is occurring, homes and businesses, in fact.
Is that because the market is there in all the socioeconomic areas?
You know, I think addictive behavior is not limited to any one type of someone's ethnic background or economic status.
The disease does not discriminate.
Well, that's good to know somebody doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
Georgiana, in your own, this prevention message thing, what is the latest concept about what kind of messaging works to keep kids from going to drugs?
Well, if I may go back to those meth commercial, that question about those, those were actually put out here locally by our organization in 2009 when we first were set up here in Hawaii. We are a local nonprofit, and that was a really great introduction to the local community. It was an attention getter. It did raise a lot of awareness, but it's a conversation starter, not a conversation in itself. So since then, we have grown so much and we've added so much to that conversation. So the techniques that we've added to our repertoire are our meth prevention lesson, which we take into classrooms across the state, private and public schools, 6th to 12th grade as well as college. We talk to students about what it does to your body, what meth does to your brain, what it does to your family, makes them have kids decide for themselves. Not just say don't do drugs because it's bad because we said so.
Let me ask one quick question
Yes.
now. What proportion of our students are getting that lesson?
Not enough. So we're working on, adding more to that. As far as that meth prevention lesson is now online for educators or, Cub Scout leaders or anyone can go ahead and provide that lesson. And it's custom to Hawaii.
And that's at your website?
You can go to hawaiimethproject.org and find that lesson, that link to the lesson right there, and you can hear stories from local teens about their experiences, and you can take that journey and learn more about that conversation. And what we encourage people to do, including the teens that we talk to in the classroom, is take something they've learned and go and share it, because that's the conversation we want to have going on in our communities. It's not just a commercial. That's just the start.
Okay, thank you. Alan Johnson, do you want to say something about that?
I just want to say, it's a complex problem needing a lot of different approaches to that. So I think what Georgiana and her group are doing is very, very powerful, because they're changing their discussions to be what relationship issues are you have. Here's some protective areas that will make you better in your relationships or in dealing with your problems. And here's some behaviors and attitudes and thinking that will make you at risk. And that's really valuable for doing that. And what happens is we're seeing a response, because Hinamulka, we're in 20-some schools, and high schools and middle schools, and we're seeing that we're treating a lot of kids right in the classrooms, and 90% of them now are coming forward to say, "I've got a problem," and usually it's mostly marijuana now. They say, "I've got a problem. Please help me," and so that's different than the adults who've got to kind of be talked into it. Kids are saying, "Please, I'm coming to see you," and that's from all these messages that are coming on.
Are teachers and other people in the community better at spotting it and directing kids, or finding kids and helping them?
I think there's still a lot of education that still needs to go along in that area. That could be something more focused in how we help educate the teachers. But certainly there's a lot of teachers out there that recognize this kid's failing, they're not doing really well, they're disruptive in class. And with us being in the schools, they can just walk down the hallway and go, "I'm having troubles, maybe you should talk to this kid a little bit."
Dr. Goff, about the science of this now, I remember hearing a long time ago that there was a certain proportion of people, and I can't remember what it was, that have got an addictive personality, or, so of the 5 people that try a drug, 1 will become addicted, but the other 5 will be fine. What is the question that's specifically to ask is from Kim and Kailua, how much of addiction is genetic versus social? Do we know that now?
So we do. We know that about half the risk for addiction comes from your genes, About half the risk comes from your environment. So that's why, talking
That
about
sounds
these,
too easy to
I
come
know,
up with. I
it's
mean,
so-
is that
yeah.
is that like a rule of thumb, or is there like actual scientific?
There have been studies that look at, for example, twin studies that look at twins who have been born to parents that and then separated and raised in different environments. So that's why it's so difficult when you have these multi-generational families living together, so that they not only have the genetic predisposition, but then they're also surrounded by the drug use. They kind of have this double whammy.
Georgiana, let me ask this question. Tell me how you you said that you first tried substances when you were 12, right? What is are we seeing kids younger and younger using harder and harder drugs, or are we better in that place than we used to be?
Unfortunately, I would say from my observation and what we're hearing at the Hawai'i Meth Project, I would say that yes, it is younger and younger, unfortunately. And from the communities that have been reaching out to us this past year, some of the advocates that fought, the fight 10 years ago and were out in, that in the streets and lining the streets of their communities against ICE, they're baffled to see it back, and they're younger. The kids are younger, and they're brazen, and it's really, really heartbreaking to see.
Why do you think it's happening?
I think there are so many factors going on. I think this drug for methamphetamine specifically has been underground. It's been lying in wait all these years, so it's been there, just waiting for somebody to kick up the dust, and now I think it is kind of happening. I think there's a lot of different social pressures. It's hard growing up in this age. What we do at the Hawai'i Meth Project, we're really trying to address social norms. We have a teen council, 20 teenage students, high school students that from across the state that we educate and we train up to go out and be ambassadors for the Not Even Once message, which is our slogan. And they really try to encourage teens to find healthy outlets and not, use drugs as their go-to escape method. And I think by addressing social norms and showing kids it's okay not to get high, and it's okay, it's not cool to do ice. I think that's one way that we're addressing it. I'm not even sure that some of us older people can understand how these young people are having to deal with cyberbullying and the internet and all the things that they have to deal with. It's very different than we did.
Ellen, are you seeing younger people coming in for treatment? Or is that changed in terms of the demographics you see?
Yes, I think, since I've been doing this for so long, but, over the last 10 years, we've seen a lot more. I mean, we're in the middle schools. Treatments in all the middle schools, all the public middle schools across the state. That wasn't true 10 years ago.
Middle
But now
school
we're
is
seeing,
aged like 11 to 13?
yeah, so we're seeing that, and we're seeing enough kids had enough for us to be there, and we carry wait lists when we're in there. And I would say across the state that we're seeing a huge marijuana epidemic, because we track the records for all our treatment agencies that deal with kids. And for treatment, we're saying about 61% is marijuana, about 20% is alcohol. You're using multiple drugs, but which one do you use the most? And it's usually marijuana, then alcohol, and then that last 10 or so percent is meth and prescription drug abuse. So a lot of kids are getting in their parents' medicine cabinet, and so they're really having, that's getting to be a big problem.
Okay.
One thing that we're seeing with the marijuana use among teens is that the use has been increasing as the perceived risk of marijuana decreases. Mm-hmm. So teens don't perceive it as a dangerous drug. They think it's natural, they think it's not addictive. And so
no GMO.
Right, exactly. So as the perceived risk decreases, the use tends to increase.
Yeah, the other part of that is that these kids who are growing up in this household where the parents are using it, it almost normalizes that behavior, and their parents didn't have the tools necessary to fight off this addiction or to resist that urge to use, so they're not able to pass anything of that down to their kids.
Do you find yourself having to investigate the source of drugs that kids are getting a hold of? I mean, is that part of what you guys end up doing? Do you see cases where kids are the main customers for?
We've had a number of complaints of drug dealings in or near schools. And that's one of those things that's even harder for us to investigate because we, guys like me, will stick out. And we don't look like
You don't
high
look
school
like a middle
students.
schooler anymore? Yeah. Okay, we're going to interrupt for just a moment to remind our audience that tonight we're talking about what we can do to reduce drug use in Hawaii. Please call, email, or tweet your questions and comments. Call 973-1000 if you're calling from Oahu, and 800-238-4847 if you're calling from a neighbor island. I'd like to continue with Captain Kawabata. A caller says, this goes to the supply side of this now. Caller says that large quantities of drugs are coming into Hawaii via commercial shipping. Much of it goes to Hilo Harbor and is then shipped to Oahu. You probably can't. Is that true? I mean, can you talk about how it's getting in here?
Well, there's only really two ways, and it's by boat or plane. And we see it both. Oahu has been, I guess, a focus. Yeah, we're like the hub, and everything comes here. And I think because some of the dealers, they realize that they try to ship it to the other islands, maybe not realizing that a lot of the stuff comes through here first anyway.
Oh. So they're not the geniuses that we put them up to be. But do you see more supply on the street? I mean, is there a high level of supply?
I don't know how to define high level, but I can say that it's pretty easy for us to go out there and find it.
Which means it's easier for an addict to go find it.
Yes.
Dr. Goff, are you hearing people say it's all over the place, particularly meth?
It's everywhere, yeah. You don't even really have to look very far to find it, I think.
What about other drugs now? We talked a little bit about prescription drugs, marijuana, and I remember sort of the prevailing thought was, oh, the meth took off when they clamped down on marijuana. Alan, I think one of us was around for all that. Was that true? Do you think was the root of the methamphetamine boom?
The science has come out a lot more clearly lately in saying that they can't really prove marijuana as a gateway drug. Now, are you saying that if you use meth, or if you use marijuana, will you end up in meth? Well, most people don't. On the other hand, if you ask a meth user, how did you start? They say, I started with marijuana.
They all did. Right.
So you have both sides of that equation. But what we're seeing is a huge more number of people coming into treatment. And a lot of that, I think, is the stigma is reducing and the families are getting more active and they see that treatment can help them. And so more and more, the word's getting out so that we're seeing large numbers of people and we're carrying large wait lists. I mean, the sad part is if you come in for treatment and you want residential, you're going to be waiting for weeks. I mean, it's 40 people on the wait list to get into these treatment places.
Why so few beds?
Just because it takes years to build capacity. I mean, at Hinamuka, we're building 16 more beds to our 48-bed facility. We've been working on it for 2-3 years. You have to raise the money and get through all the permits and go through things, so it takes years for that.
So the insurance reimbursement isn't enough to just, if you have a customer, you can invest in new facilities?
Oh, absolutely not. Most treatment agencies are on the edge of bankruptcy right now. The rates were created in the late 80s and early 90s, and they haven't really moved. At least doctors got some raises, and the hospitals did, but the treatment facilities didn't because we were treating the vulnerable people. But nowadays, insurance companies and government are talking about investing in us to, build capacity and giving us rates so we can hire the right kind of staff, just because they recognize that the really expensive people out there who are costing billions in Hawaii are the people we treat and the people we could treat if we had the right resources. So they're really saying that they could save lots of money if they invested in us. So that's changing right now.
Daviana, was the lack of access to treatment, was that a factor in your experience, or was it more, I'm an addict and I'm not going to go get treatment until
I think it was readiness in my case, and lack of readiness. I think that treatment opportunity is always a situation, and I know that to have been a case in certain situations, and you have to be quite dire to get access to it, to a bed space, to a spot in a treatment facility. But I think that it is really, there's a stigma, it's an afterthought, and if we could save make this a priority. Mental health, behavioral health, treatment, prevention for substance abuse and addiction, I think it would save us across the board, a lot of money and a lot of lives, because many of these people that we're talking about, they're not horrible people. I'm sure the captain deals with a lot of really not so great people that maybe he needs to be putting away, but many people that Alan's treating and Dr. Goff is treating, they're great people. They're just making bad choices.
Let me move on to some. I've got quite a big increase in questions here. Let me go through the ones that I think are on point right now. Aren't opioids being used more than meth today? Dr. Goff, what are you seeing out there?
In Hawaii, meth is still number one, but opioids are increasing, especially on the mainland, and we're seeing that here too. I think it's becoming more difficult for people to get prescription opioids illicitly. Doctors are more reluctant to prescribe them. There's closer monitoring, and so as a result of that, I think people we're starting to see go back to heroin. And I think that number will probably increase before it decreases, but here in Hawaii, meth is still number one.
Yeah, we treat, right now for all the people coming to treatment, all the agencies, 50% of the people are on meth. But the most people who are on meth, they're also doing alcohol, marijuana, and prescription drug abuse. Now, if you're looking for opioid problems, are people overusing opioids but don't have an addiction? Yeah, that's huge. I mean, right now we're seeing that 50% of all adult Americans in the United States have at least one chronic illness. Oh, that's huge. This never was like that before. And we're finding that 70% of those people have a behavioral health problem. So they're self-medicating their depression, their PTSD, their trauma, combined with their diabetes, because so many people have chronic illness. And so that's what you're seeing. So you're seeing opioid being used. So they're saying that opioid addiction will be the new huge epidemic that'll outdo all other epidemics. So I think we're on the cusp of that, and we're certainly seeing it on the mainland.
What I'm getting from what you're saying is that we don't just have a drug problem, we've got a medical care problem, that if all these underlying situations aren't being addressed, that's the medical care system.
I loved it in the last Republican debate. That's when one of the Governor Huckabee said that I think really well. He said, we don't have just a healthcare crisis in America. We have a chronic illness crisis in America, and it's huge.
Let me ask you, Daviana, when you were going through your experience, and from what you know, and as Alan said, that a lot of addicts are using all kinds of stuff. How do you choose what you're going to use at any given time?
Well,
what are the factors, I guess, of what I'm asking?
That's an interesting question, and I think each person may have a certain affinity. If you enjoy a drink of alcohol, do you enjoy a beer or a wine? Is it red wine or white wine? It's your preference. Do you enjoy cigarettes or not? Or do you enjoy a stimulant versus a depressant?
Well, but I mean, that's assuming that I have easy access to all that stuff. I mean, a drug addict who's doing illegal drugs is choosing from among a number of illegal behaviors at a number of extraordinary prices at an extraordinary cost to themselves. So
usually at an introductory situation, it's usually a free situation. Usually someone's going to introduce you in a free, it's a freebie. They're going to offer it to you.
Oh, that's how you get started.
That's typical.
Well, we have a smokable culture here, and methamphetamine feeds right into that. I think that's why the mainland with the OxyContin and all the issues they're having, people turning to heroin, because it's so much cheaper than getting OxyContin off the street. But here, methamphetamine is really cheap, and we have a smokable culture, so a lot of people are turning to that. And even though we're seeing now is, we had an 83% increase in the elderly, people over 50 turning to meth. So that's been a huge statistic that the Department of Health just released a couple of months ago. So that's shocking almost.
Do you, Captain, keep track of this? I mean, I did get a question from Anonymous in Honolulu, because I think anyway, he asked, what is the average cost of a hit of meth in Honolulu?
$40.
For one use?
For one use.
And how long does that last?
A few hours, maybe.
Is that a good deal? I mean, it sounds like kind of a lot to me. I don't know. Dr. Goff? I mean, is it the inexpensive nature of meth in Hawaii? Is that your opinion too, that it's just so easy to get?
It does seem to be everywhere, and you're right. There are ways to get it if you want it. If you're motivated enough, you will find a way to get it, no matter how much it costs.
Is there concern on the panel about this? Why is our state legalizing so-called medical marijuana and allowing licenses for legal sales? Is it still illegal in any other use? Are people being arrested for street use or sale? Maybe start with you, Captain. I mean, is marijuana at all a law enforcement priority, with all this other stuff going on? And are you concerned about people getting more access to marijuana through legal?
Well, yeah, we're concerned about the greater and easier access to marijuana, especially by our youth. And so we submitted testimony to the legislature regarding this. And really our position is, if someone has a true medical need, by all means, let them get what they need. However, keep it out of the hands of people who just want to get high. Keep it away from our kids.
Dr. Goth, or any of you, is there any truth to the thought that if you make marijuana easier to get, it might reduce the amount of abuse of other drugs?
I'll tell you what is mostly true is extensive research has shown that the most likely answer, not the final answer, but the most likely answer is if you're a developing brain and you abuse marijuana, not necessarily just use, but if you abuse marijuana, chances are that you lose your IQ, you lose your functions of your brain for decision-making, learning, and memory. You lose it permanently. And that's not true if you're an adult. If you're an adult and you start abusing marijuana and you stop, then you get all those functions back. You have to relearn them. But if you're 23 years or younger and you start abusing, you don't get them back. And marijuana is so powerful today, and I think that's a very strong prevention message that needs to get out there to say, it's not always the soft drug that you have. Yeah. On the other hand, we understand there's a compassionate response to things. And we also understand there's some medical benefits, but we're not really clear on that because as an illegal drug, not much research has been done. But now with medical marijuana, a lot of research more will be done, and we'll see just what medical benefits there really are. But the prevention message, if we don't get that out, that's scary.
And that's actually something that we often have a conversation about because, in the classroom, the teens quite often will bring up, well, marijuana, it's natural. And we have to talk to them about, well, your brain is still growing. It's still developing, and anything you put in your body, just like Alan said, can affect that growth and development. So, we need to just keep having that conversation with people.
Dr. Goff, I'm interested in your theory about this because you talk to enough addicts to know their stories, right? Do you think that if we could succeed in delaying people starting to use any drug to say 18 or 19 instead of 12 or 13, how big a difference would that make?
There is some evidence that putting off the first use of drugs or alcohol can really make a difference. Your likelihood of becoming addicted is much lower if you start drinking alcohol at 21 versus age 12. So I think any delaying that can be done in taking that first hit or that first drink can actually make a difference.
The national studies have said that for you to get to severe or chronic addiction, 80% started as adolescents or younger. So the majority of people started using when they were young. It's mostly a young person's disease when you start that.
Some questions have come in about the quality. We've talked a lot about the availability of drug treatment, but once people are in, are we getting better at treating them? Are we more likely to succeed? One question is, what is the recidivism rate for drug treatment in Hawaii? Another question is, 90, it says, I don't know if this is accurate, 90+% of programs are 12-step related. Those are the psychology and group therapy kind of systems, I guess. Another point this same caller makes, interesting story, was Vietnam soldiers were required to get clean before they came back, and relapse was very low. But back to my question, I mean, if people get into treatment, are we seeing as much recidivism as we used to, or is it getting better.
Well, I think the technology is just way better nowadays because we have all these great new therapies and over the last 10, 15 years, and we have medication-assisted treatments. We have medications that can reduce cravings and withdrawal and cognitive behavioral therapies. So our technology is really great, and I think our outcomes have really, really greatly improved. You have like 75% of people who are completing treatment if they start at residential. But you have to keep in mind, you know, we're not taking on the really sick because we don't have the resources for it. So we're only taking on those who are chronically ill but not severely ill. So we're not taking on that very difficult population that's so expensive. But in that avenue where we're taking, yeah, we've really made great improvements but until the resources and the systems change, we're, you know, on the other hand, it's a chronic relapsing disease, you know, and so, you know, do you go out and full-blown return to an addict, or do you fall down just a little bit and get right back up? Well, just like diabetes and hypertension, you know, you don't always stay on your diet and always exercise if you're diabetic, but if you're getting better, then that's a good sign. And I think that's the best way to look at addiction, is it's going to take some time and some maintenance and some monitoring and a lot of support. But yes, people are getting way better today, and the technology exists that we could greatly tackle those people who are more severe, that are so expensive, if we were to redesign our systems.
And Daviana, let me ask you, when did you finally went into treatment?
I did.
And what worked for you?
It was, for me, I actually was first, did a little bit of time at OCCC, and I was, I'm grateful to Judge Michael Town for letting me sit there for a good 7 months, which is a long time to do pre-trial time, you know.
Why did that happen?
I was pregnant at the time.
So
And,
he didn't want you out.
He wanted me to sit there, and I thought.
So you were in jail because you were pregnant?
I think so. You know, that was the best place for me because I couldn't, you know, I couldn't be trusted. I was my own worst enemy, and you know, I went straight from jail to Women's Way, Salvation Army Women's Way program, and I spent, you know, a good 9 months in their various programs, their intensive.
Wow.
Inpatient as well as their aftercare program, and you know, many years of 12-step and service and church and family and various programs, just being very active in the community, and that helped me to relearn how to be a part of society, because I think that's what the big part of it was. It's not just stopping the use, it's how to relearn how to be a part of the community.
Let me ask Dr. Goff, I mean, is 7 months in prison and 9 months in residential treatment, is that still the kind of length of time it takes, or is it a lot shorter process now, at least to get somebody to the point where, you know, they're functioning and okay?
For some people, that's what it takes. And it's a whole spectrum of illness. There are people with mild substance use disorders all the way to severe substance use disorders. And I do prefer the term relapse as opposed to recidivism from my perspective. Substance abuse does have actually very similar rates of relapse as diabetes and hypertension and asthma. So we do kind of look at it with a chronic disease model.
Interesting. Okay, Captain Kawabata, you know, we've talked a lot about it. You know, Daviana, you know, appreciates that the police intervened in her life and got her in jail, but from what I understand, I mean, it's very unusual for someone who's just a user to end up doing any significant jail time. And the call, that's to set up this call from Rob and Milani. What does an illegal drug user have to do to get arrested?
Illegal drug user. You know, really, most of our users are arrested for other crimes, and they happen to have the drugs on them, so they get charged the additional drug charge. We do come across those where the officer on patrol happens to see someone smoking from their pipe, but this I would say is rarer for that to happen rather than them get arrested for some other kind of crime.
If you see a guy standing on the street smoking a meth pipe, he's going to get arrested?
Yes.
Okay, but in terms of an out-and-out undercover operation, it's not usually focused on users.
Right. So our undercover operation focus on the suppliers of the drugs.
Is that something that's changed, or has that been pretty consistent for many years, that policy?
When it comes to the narcotics vice division, you know, we want to have as big an effect as possible in these drugs. And the way to do that is to target the supplier. So if we catch someone, for instance, with a pound of meth, imagine how many users we're actually keeping that out of the hands of.
Well, I've read recently about huge busts, people who've been supplying 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 pounds of meth over a long period of time. They get significant time.
Well, so far this year, we've seized over 180 pounds of meth so far this year.
And that's HPD.
HPD.
And then the feds are actively doing their own too, right?
Actually, we work together a lot. So we have task forces that we form with the DEA and FBI and Homeland Security.
Okay, you.
Well, you need to approach all the way around because, yes, you have to get to the supplies, but also you have to talk about how you get with the demand and the treatment, because if you're on the street corner smoking a meth pipe, yeah, conspicuous. But if you're on the street corner vaping meth, undetectable. Mm-hmm. And so more sophisticated uses and synthetic marijuana and with other kinds of really dangerous drugs mixed into them, prescription drug abuse. I mean, we're heading into this new arena where it's going to be more and more difficult to catch people other than the big supply things.
Right.
So the people on the street is going to be, okay, how do we get them into treatment? And people who are mandating the treatment do well. Those who would volunteer to do treatment and see it as a medical condition, if they knew it as a medical condition, those are great ways to make changes.
Daviana, you appreciated the mentioning of the vape.
Yes, because I think there is a huge concern that we have, that we probably all share, around the potential that we're seeing, or the beginnings of what liquids can be put into an e-cigarette, vaping machine, and can be very conspicuously utilized and smoked, just in broad plain view of everyone. And it could be any drug. It could be marijuana oils, components, and it could be meth. It could be all kinds of things, and we need to be very cautious of that. I think the tobacco people here locally have been very good about changing the laws around that and including e-cigs there, but we need to be all very aware of what's going on with these e-cig machines, and they're not just putting nicotine in them. Be very aware.
Okay. Captain, a couple of questions about meth labs. My understanding is the largest supply of meth comes from out of state, but do we have a meth lab problem in this state or in this island?
We don't have anything on the scale of what we did before the law changes, making it harder to get the substances needed to make the meth. So although we do have reports of meth labs in certain neighborhoods, if we do come across one, it's usually on a very small scale, and they're not producing a large amount of pounds or anything like that.
I'm guessing that the economies of scale are such that it's cheaper to make it someplace where there's no law enforcement and ship it in than it is to try and make it here where you could be obvious in a tight environment.
Yeah, so we actually see most of it probably coming from like Mexico and China.
Mm-hmm. China?
Yes.
Wow, I was always thinking about Mexico, but I hadn't heard about China. We remember it was called Batu originally. It was coming from the Philippines and Indonesia, but China.
Yeah.
Well, they're an exporting country, I guess. Something I wanted to get into, and I'd like all of you to weigh in on this. For parents, when should we start talking to our kids about drugs? I know as a parent, you want them to be safe and protected for a long time, and you don't want to bring this stuff up unless you really have to. But, Daviana, why don't you start? When should you start?
I think the conversation doesn't even start with drugs. It just starts with having open dialogue. Period. As from elementary school, from the earliest ages, and the subject matter may change in those dialogues as the age increases of the child. We actually encourage, for methamphetamine specifically, we encourage parents to go onto our website, find something compelling, because it's very interactive. find something compelling and have a conversation over that piece that they're comfortable, and see what their child feels and thinks about that, and they'd be surprised. Usually for our content specifically, it's about 6th grade and up, depending on the child's, you know your child best. I would highly recommend that that parents not overly immerse their child and not put their head in the sand either, because just knowing, being open to listening to your child, ask them what's going on, and just having those open dialogues, I think, is the start, because knowing, if the child knows that they can come to you with any kind of situations and share what their friends are into or what's going on, I think that's a good, healthy beginning.
Dr. Goff, what do you think is the trick to that, to having a conversation that they don't even realize is a conversation about drugs?
Well, I think it does start with building a relationship of trust between the parent and the child, the kind of relationship where the child feels like they can ask those kind of questions to their parents.
Okay, thank you very much, all of you. We've run out of time, and I'm going to remind our audience that Insights on PBS Hawaii will be on hiatus for the next 2 weeks. When we return on December 10th, we'll continue our discussion on drug abuse in Hawaii, taking a deeper look at what we should do with those convicted of drug-related crimes, weighing the merits of incarceration, rehabilitation, and other approaches. On the next Insights, what should we do with Hawaii's illegal drug offenders? That's next time on Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Daryl Huff. Ahui ho.